The alien market was loud, full of strange voices and flashing lights. Bright signs glowed in colors that no human city had ever seen. The air was thick with the smell of hot oil, burning metal, and strange spices. Shadows moved under the neon. Glow traders shouting to sell their goods and buyers arguing about prices. But this was not a normal market. This was the black market. The place where the law had no power, and in the center of it all stood a metal cage. Cold and ugly under the lights, inside that cage sat a girl. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer. Her eyes bright but tired. She was thin, her wrists marked. With bruises where metal cuffs had rubbed for too long, the crowd around the cage looked at her like she was not a person. To them, she was only a product. They were not here to learn her name or hear her voice. They were here to know her weight. They were here to pay for her body, because in this part of the galaxy, she was called a pleasure animal. Not human, not alien, just a thing to own. She kept her head down as the auctioneer stepped forward. He was tall, with 4 arms and a mouth that split open in a wide grin. He hit a metal rod against the cage, making a sharp sound that cut through the noise. All right, buyers," he called, his voice oily and smooth. "This fine creature is young, healthy, and—" As you can see, rare laughter came from the crowd. Some of them shouted rude words. Others called out prices before the auction had even started. The girl closed her eyes, wishing she could vanish. She had learned long ago that hope was dangerous. Here, far away, near the edge of the crowd, a human man watched. He wore a dark coat, hood up, and his face was hidden in shadow. He didn't move, didn't shout, didn't laugh. His eyes stayed fixed on the girl. He looked like someone searching for something. But nobody noticed him. The noise of the market was too loud, the smell too strong, the greed too thick. The auctioneer hit the cage again. Weight, 58 standard units. He said proudly, "Look at her size, look at her build, perfect." For any owner's pleasure, the crowd cheered. Coins and credit chips flashing in their hands. The man in the hood stayed silent. His hands were in his pockets. But his body was tense. The girl glanced up for just a second and saw him. Something in his eyes made her heart beat faster. It was not the look of a buyer. It was the look of someone who saw her, really saw her. The bidding began. Numbers flew through the air, each higher than the last. A fat alien with gold rings on every finger shouted the first big price. A tall, insect-like trader clicked his mandibles and doubled it. The crowd laughed. Enjoying the fight for ownership, the girl didn't care who won. She knew that no matter who paid, her life would be the same. Chains, orders, pain, and silence. Then, the human spoke. His voice was deep and clear, cutting through the noise like a blade. "I'll pay double." The crowd went quiet. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. A human paying that much for a pleasure animal. Unheard of. The auctioneer smiled wider, rubbing his hands. "Well now, it seems we have a serious buyer," he said. "Do I hear a counteroffer?" But no one answered. The human's price was too high. Even the rich traders stepped back. Muttering to themselves, the auctioneer banged the rod again. Sold to the human. The cage door screeched as it opened. 2 guards stepped inside, grabbing the girl's arms. They unlocked her chains from the bars, but kept the cuffs on her wrists. The human moved forward, handing over a small silver card payment in full. The crowd watched him with curious eyes. Some whispered about him. Others laughed quietly. Everyone assumed he bought her for the same reason anyone would. No one guessed the truth. The girl stumbled as they pushed her toward him. Her legs were weak, her eyes full of fear. He didn't touch her, just walked beside her as they left the market. The noise faded behind them, replaced by the hum of the narrow streets. She dared to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "Why?" But he didn't answer. Not yet. He only said, We need to get you out of here." And in that moment, she realized something strange. This man was not taking her to a cage. He was taking her away from one. The alien market did not slow down for anyone. Voices still rose and fell like waves. Hands still traded coins and credits, and the smell of oil and smoke still clung to the air. But around the center stage, where the metal cage stood, the crowd leaned in closer. Everyone wanted a better look at the rare prize about to be sold. The auctioneer raised his forearms high, his long fingers snapping for silence. "Buyers today, you are lucky," he said with a grin that showed too many teeth. "This is no ordinary product. This is the kind of creature you see once in a lifetime." He tapped the side of the cage with his staff, making the bars rattle. Inside, the girl did not move. Her head stayed bowed, her hands still cuffed in front of her. She knew this moment too well. It had happened before. On other planets, in other markets, every time it ended the same way, the crowd pushed forward. Alien faces shining in the market's harsh light. There were creatures with scaled skin, creatures with eyes on stalks, and creatures wrapped in layers of silk and gold. Some were silent, calculating. Others were loud, bragging about how much they could spend. One alien with bright blue skin leaned toward his friend and laughed. "I'll buy her, and when I'm done, I'll sell her again." The friend laughed too. The girl heard every word, but she didn't flinch. She had learned not to react. The auctioneer loved it when they reacted. It made the crowd bid higher. The human still stood at the edge of the circle. His hood was still up, his face still shadowed. Nobody knew his name. Nobody cared. He looked like just another customer. But his eyes didn't move away from the girl. Every detail of her face, her posture, her quiet strength, he took it all in. If the crowd had noticed the way he watched her, they might have guessed his reason for being there. But no one noticed. Greed blinded them all. The auctioneer banged the staff again. "Let's start the bidding. Opening price, 4,000 credits, he called. A tall insectoid with sharp legs clicked loudly. 4,000, 6,000, barked a scaled creature with gold chains. 7,000, shouted another voice from the back. The numbers began to rise quickly, each bid sharper than the last. The crowd was hungry, each buyer wanting to own something rare. The auctioneer's grin grew wider with each shout. The girl kept her eyes on the ground. She didn't want to see their faces, in her mind. She tried to imagine somewhere else, a place with no cages, no bars, no eyes watching her. But the noise kept pulling her back. With every number called, her future was being sold. Her weight was a number. Her life was a number. And the crowd treated it like a game. 10,000. Shouted the fat alien with gold rings, his voice shaking with greed. The crowd gasped. That was a high price even for this market. The auctioneer clapped two hands together. 10,000. Going once, 20,000. A deep voice cut in. The crowd went still, heads turned. The human had spoken. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his arms. He just stood there, calm and steady, his voice carrying over the noise. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. "Oh, a human buyer," he said. "Now this is interesting. Do I hear 21,000? No one answered. The price was too high. Even the greedy fat alien stepped back. Muttering curses under his breath, the crowd began to whisper. Why would a human spend that much? Humans were rare here, and most didn't waste money on pleasure. Animals, some thought he was insane. Others thought he must be rich beyond measure. The auctioneer waited, hoping for a challenge, but the silence stayed. "Sold," he declared, banging the staff so hard it echoed across the market. The human stepped forward slowly. Two guards opened the cage and pulled the girl out. Her legs shook, and the cuffs cut into her wrists as she stumbled. He handed the auctioneer a silver payment card without a word. The alien tested it, nodded, and stepped aside. The deal was done. The crowd watched with mixed expressions: curiosity, envy, suspicion. Some whispered that the human would grow bored of her in days and sell her back. Others joked about the soft heart of humans. But the human ignored them all. His focus stayed on her. Her eyes met his for only a second. Something passed. Between them, a question, maybe even a spark of hope. She quickly looked away. Hope was dangerous. The human didn't take her hand or pull her by the chain. He simply walked beside her, his pace steady. The market's noise grew distant, replaced by the hum of the city's shadowed alleys. The girl finally spoke, her voice small. "Where are you taking me?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Somewhere they can't follow." She didn't know if she could believe him, but for the first time in a long time, the fear in her chest was joined by something else, something she hadn't felt since she was taken from her home, a tiny, fragile thread of trust. The deal was made. But the market still watched. It was not every day a human walked into the black market and paid more than anyone else. Whispers followed him as he left the stage, the girl walking beside him with her wrists still bound. The path through the stalls was narrow, the air heavy with the smell of oil, fried meat, and rust. Vendors stared as they passed, their eyes sliding from the human to the girl and back again. They saw the cuffs, the pale skin, the quiet steps, and they thought they knew the story. The human kept his hood low, his hands deep in his coat pockets. His pace was calm, but his eyes scanned the crowd. Every corner, every shadow, every figure that moved, he measured them all. The girl stayed silent, not daring to ask questions. She had learned in this life that speaking too much brought pain. And yet, something about this man felt different. He was not walking like an owner. He was walking like someone expecting danger. A group of traders blocked the path ahead. One, a large-scaled alien with yellow eyes, stepped forward. "Good price you paid." "Human," the alien said, his voice slow and mocking. "You must like her a lot. Or maybe you don't know what to do with her." The others laughed. The human did not. He took a step forward, his voice low. "Move." The scaled alien smiled wider. "Or what?" The human's hand twitched inside his coat. Whatever he carried there made the alien's smile fade. The traders stepped aside, muttering to each other as the human and the girl passed. They reached the far edge of the market, where the lights grew dim and the smell of smoke turned to the damp scent of rain. A narrow tunnel led away from the stalls into the older part of the city. The girl's steps slowed, her mind racing. She had been sold before, but no buyer had ever taken her this far without touching her. No one had ever walked her away from the market like this. She looked at him from the corner of her eye. He was taller than most here, his face partly visible now under the fading light. There was something sharp in his eyes, but not cruel. He looked like a man carrying a secret. When they turned a corner, the human finally spoke again. "Your name?" he said quietly. She hesitated. "They don't care about my name. I do," he replied, his voice firm. She studied his face for a moment, trying to understand. Then she said it, soft but clear. He nodded, saying nothing more. But something in his expression shifted. It was not the look of a man who had bought an animal. It was the look of someone who had found exactly what he was looking for. The tunnel opened into a small landing bay. Old ships rested here, their hulls covered in dust and scars. In the far corner was a smaller craft, sleek but worn. The human walked toward it without slowing. As they approached, a soft hum came from inside the ship's systems waking up. He pressed a panel, and the ramp lowered with a hiss. The girl stopped at the base of the ramp. "Where are we going?" she asked. He looked back at her. Away from here, her heart wanted to believe him, but her mind warned her not to. Inside the ship, the air was cooler, cleaner. The lights were dim, the hum of the engine steady. He led her to a small seat and unfastened a pack from his shoulder. From it, he pulled a thin tool and knelt beside her. She froze as he reached for her cuffs. A soft click, and the metal bands fell away. Her wrists felt strange without the weight. She rubbed them slowly, almost in disbelief. "No more chains," he said simply. It was the first kind thing anyone had said to her in years before she could speak. A sharp alarm sounded from the ship's console. The human's head turned fast on a small screen. Dots of red began to move. Ships were approaching the bay. "They followed us," he muttered. Her heart raced. The market. He nodded once, moving quickly to the controls. The ramp began to rise. The engines roared louder. She gripped the seat as the ship lifted outside. The landing bay doors began to close, but they shot through just in time through the small window. She saw the city lights shrinking below them. But the red dots on the screen were still there. Growing closer, the human's hands moved fast over the controls, his jaw tight. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't look at her. "The one who's going to keep you alive." It sounded like a promise, but also a warning. She stared at him, trying to understand why he had spent so much, why he had risked so much. And in the back of her mind, one thought refused to go away. Maybe he wasn't just saving her. Maybe he needed her. The ship's engines roared as it climbed higher into the dark alien sky. Clouds rolled past like heavy shadows, their edges lit by the city's neon glow far below. The girl sat strapped into her seat, her hands gripping the armrests. She had been in ships before, but never as a passenger. Never as someone being taken away instead of brought back. Every vibration, every sudden tilt made her heart jump. The human sat at the controls, his eyes scanning every flashing light on the console. Behind them, the red dots on the radar were spreading. Some came fast, others slower, but all were moving in their direction. "They're not giving up," he said quietly. She leaned forward. "The market?" "Not just the market," he replied. "Traders, bounty hunters, maybe even worse." His voice was calm, but his hands moved quickly, switching levers and tapping commands. The first blast came without warning. A streak of orange light shot past the window, missing them by meters. The girl gasped, the heat from the shot making the glass flicker. "They're trying to disable us," he said. "Not destroy." "Why?" she asked. "Because you're worth more alive," he answered, his jaw tight. The ship banked hard to the left, throwing her against the straps. Through the side window, she saw 3 small fighter crafts closing in. They were fast, sharp-winged, and painted with the black and red colors of the city's Shadow Guild. "They're not going to stop," she said. "That's why we're not going straight," he replied. He pushed the ship downward suddenly, diving toward the dark side. Of the city below, towers rose like jagged teeth, their windows glowing with alien light. Air traffic moved between them, cargo haulers, patrol drones, and passenger skiffs. The human wove between them. Each turned faster and closer than the last. Alarms blared inside the ship as proximity. Sensors screamed. One of the enemy fighters tried to follow, but clipped a tower's edge. Spinning out in a shower of sparks, the girl's breath came fast, her pulse loud in her ears. "You've done this before," she said. "Too many times," he replied, his eyes never leaving the path ahead. A second blast hit the ship's side, shaking it violently. Panels flickered. The engine's hum stuttered. She grabbed the edge of the seat. "We're hit." "Just a scratch," he said, "but we can't stay low much longer." He pulled up sharply. The ship shooting between 2 towers so close the metal scraped against glass. Lights blurred past, and then they broke free into open sky. The radar showed fewer red dots now. Some had stayed behind in the city, others had fallen back, but 2 were still locked on their trail. "They're stubborn," he muttered. He flicked a switch and a hidden panel in the ceiling slid open, small metal. Pods dropped out and fell behind them. Moments later, Bursts of bright light exploded in the air, flares to confuse targeting systems. One of the fighters spun off course, disappearing into the clouds. But the last one stayed, its weapons still armed. The girl leaned forward. "Why are they after me so badly?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because you're not what they think you are." Her eyes narrowed. "Then what am I?" "You'll find out," he replied. "If we survive the next 5 minutes," the last fighter closed in. Firing again, the ship shook as a shot grazed the rear thrusters. Smoke filled part of the cabin, and alarms wailed. The human slammed a lever forward, sending the ship into a spin that twisted her stomach. The fighter tried to follow, but couldn't match the turn. As they leveled out, he fired a small charge from the ship's tail. It connected with the fighter's wing, and in a flash, the enemy craft was gone. Spinning away into darkness, the radar went clear. The hum of the engine steadied again. The girl sat back, her chest rising and falling. She looked at him. "You could have left me there." "I could have," he said, not looking at her, "but you didn't," she said softly. He gave no reply. Instead, he set the ship on a new course, one that led away from the city and into the vast stretch of space beyond, through the front. Glass stars began to appear, cold, endless, and quiet. The city was now only a faint glow behind them. For the first time since she could remember, there were no walls around her. No guards, no bars, only the open void. But freedom didn't feel safe yet. Not when she didn't know who this man was or why he had risked so much to take her. She turned to him, her voice low. "Where are we going?" He finally looked at her. "To a place they don't know exists," he said. "And when we get there?" She asked then. He said with the faintest smile, "You'll understand why you're still alive." The stars outside were still cold and endless. The hum of the ship was steady now, but the girl could still feel her heartbeat in her chest. She sat in silence, staring at the dark glass of the cockpit. Her wrists were free of chains, but the weight of questions felt heavier than metal. The human pilot moved with calm precision, his hands shifting levers, checking readings. He didn't speak for a long time. It was as if he was deciding whether to tell her something. Finally, he stood from the pilot's seat, walked toward the storage wall, and pulled out a small silver case. He set it on the table in the narrow lounge of the ship and motioned for her to sit. She hesitated, then stepped forward. The case opened with a soft hiss, revealing a glass pad that glowed faintly. Inside was a single shard of crystal, smooth and pale blue. When the girl leaned closer, the crystal pulsed with a slow light. Her breath caught. "It's warm." "It knows you," the human said quietly. Her eyes darted to his. "What do you mean?" "That crystal doesn't respond to anyone else." He replied, "It's alive in a way, connected to a bloodline that most of the galaxy thinks is gone." She shook her head. You're not just anything," he cut in. He turned the crystal toward her, and the light grew brighter. "It's been searching for someone like you for years," he said. Her voice trembled. "Why?" "Because you are from the Illyrian line," he said slowly. "A race that disappeared 100 years ago after a war the galaxy still doesn't talk about." The word felt strange on her tongue. Illyrian. He nodded. "Your people could shape energy, heal wounds, even bend gravity in small ways. That's a myth." She said quickly. "It's not," he replied. "And you've felt it before, haven't you? Moments when something impossible happened around you." Her mind flashed back to small things she had never told anyone. The time her chains broke when no one touched them. The way a guard's weapon once failed just before it would have struck her. The sudden warmth in her hands when she wished the cold away. She swallowed hard. "I thought I imagined it." "You didn't," he said. "And that's why the market wanted you, not for what you are now, but for what you could be used for." The ship gave a soft shudder as it passed through a thin belt of dust and ice. She glanced toward the cockpit. "So you saved me. For this." "I saved you because they would have broken you until you forgot what you are," he said, his voice steady. "And now?" She asked. "Now," he said, "you need to decide what to do with the truth." She looked at the crystal again. Its light now, soft and steady. It was beautiful, but also frightening. Her whole life had been cages and commands. The thought of being something rare, something powerful, didn't feel real. "It doesn't matter," she muttered. "I don't know how to be Illyrian." He leaned back. "That's where you're wrong." He tapped the crystal, and it shimmered, projecting faint shapes into the air, patterns of stars, maps, and symbols she didn't understand. "This is a key," he said, "and it's leading us somewhere." She frowned. "Where?" He hesitated. "To the last safe place, your people built before they vanished." The air in the room felt colder. "And what's there?" She asked. "Answers," he said, "and maybe others like you," before she could respond. An alarm flashed red on the cockpit panel. The human moved quickly to check it, his eyes narrowing. "What is it?" She asked. "We've been tracked," he said. Her stomach dropped. "The market." "Not just them," he replied. "Something bigger. The signal is too precise." The radar showed a single dot, approaching fast. It wasn't a trader's craft or a fighter. It was larger, heavier, a ship built for long hunts. "They know exactly where we are," he muttered. "How?" she asked. His eyes moved to the crystal. "It's not just a key, it's a beacon." She stepped back. "So you've been carrying something that's telling them where to find us." He met her eyes. "I didn't know it was active." Her pulse quickened. "Then what now?" He closed the case, locking the crystal inside. "Now," he said, "we move faster than they can follow." The engines roared louder as he pushed the ship to its limit. Stars blurred into long streaks of light as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. The sudden silence that followed was almost heavier than the noise. The girl gripped the table, her mind spinning. She had learned more in 10 minutes than in her entire life, and now someone powerful wanted to take it all away. The human glanced back at her, his voice low. "If they catch us, they'll take the crystal and you." She swallowed hard. "And then?" "They'll use you until there's nothing left," he said, her hands clenched. Not out of fear this time, but something sharper. She had been treated like property her whole life, sold by weight, caged by strangers, but now she knew she was something they couldn't own. The streaks of light outside the ship were beautiful, but they gave no comfort. The girl sat in the co-pilot's seat now, her eyes fixed on the blinking red dot on the radar. It was still there, steady and unshaken by the jump into faster-than-light. "Travel, they're keeping up," she said, her voice low. The human's jaw tightened. "That ship isn't just following us," he said. "It's matching our every move." He tapped the console, bringing up a holodisplay of the enemy vessel. It was massive, shaped like a black blade, its surface covered in plates of dark armor. Dozens of heat signatures pulsed across its body. Weapons, engines, and something else she didn't recognize. "That's not a trader's ship," she murmured. "No," he replied. "It's a hunter-class cruiser, built for long chases and capturing targets alive." The words made her stomach twist. He began plotting a new course, his fingers moving quickly over the glowing controls. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere they won't expect," he said. "And if they do expect it, then we make sure they regret it," he said, his voice steady. A sharp alarm cut through the cabin. "They're closing in," he muttered. He switched off the main lights, plunging the cabin into a dim glow from the screens. "If they can't see us, they'll have to guess where we are," he said. She frowned. "Can we hide in faster-than-light?" He shook his head. "No, but we can disappear before they get a clean shot." Suddenly, the entire ship lurched. The floor vibrated under her feet. and the sound of metal groaning filled the air. "They've locked a gravity snare on us," he said quickly. "What does that mean?" she asked, gripping the seat. "It means they can pull us out of jump space before we're ready." Before she could reply, the stars outside snapped back into single points. They were out of faster-than-light, hanging in the cold emptiness. Of normal space, the hunter ship appeared behind them, its size filling the view. It moved with the slow, deliberate grace of something that had no fear. "They want us alive," he said. "But that doesn't mean they won't hurt us first." The first volley of plasma fire streaked toward them. He rolled the ship hard to the left, the shots passing just meters from their hull. She was thrown against the straps, the impact knocking the air from her lungs. He hit the thrusters, the engines screaming as they pushed the small ship to its limits. The enemy followed, never losing ground. "They're too fast," she said. "Not fast enough," he replied. Flipping open a red switch cover, he pressed it, and a cluster of metallic spheres dropped from the back of the ship. They floated for a second, then burst into clouds of glowing shards. The hunter ship plowed through them, its shields sparking under the sudden impact. It slowed for just a moment, but the moment was enough. He dove toward a nearby asteroid field, the jagged rocks spinning slowly in the void. "That's suicide," she said. "It's cover," he replied, steering them between the first massive stones. The ship weaved through the field, each turn tight enough to scrape the edges. The hunter ship followed, but its size made it slower. Chunks of rock scraped and bounced off its hull. A smaller craft broke away from the cruiser, a black, needle-shaped fighter. It was faster than both ships and moved like it had a mind of its own. "They've sent a pilot after us," he said grimly. The fighter darted through the asteroid field like a predator, firing thin beams of light that sliced through the rocks. Each shot came closer than the last. He spun the ship sharply. Diving under a spinning asteroid, the fighter followed, matching every move. "Whoever's flying that isn't just trained," he said. "They're good." The girl leaned forward, her eyes narrowing at the sight of the fighter's cockpit. The glass flashed just enough for her to see the pilot's face. She froze. "I know them." He glanced at her. "How?" Her voice was tight. "They were in the market the day I was taken from my home." The fighter fired again, grazing the edge of their wing. The ship shuddered, alarms flashing red. "We can't outrun them," she said. "We don't need to." He replied, "We just need to make them miss once." He waited until the fighter was almost on top of them. Then, at the last possible second, he cut the engines. The sudden drop in speed made the fighter overshoot. Before it could recover, he fired the ship's rear cannons. The blast hit the fighter's wing, spinning it into an asteroid. The explosion lit the field for a moment, then faded into darkness. The hunter cruiser was still behind them, but farther now. He reignited the engines and pushed them toward the far edge of the asteroid belt. Once they cleared the last stone, he punched the faster-than-light drive again. The stars stretched into lines, and the hunter's ship disappeared from view. Silence filled the cabin, except for the hum of the engines. She sat back, her breathing unsteady. "You didn't kill them," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "Which means they'll be back." She stared at the stars ahead, her thoughts heavy. If that pilot was the one who had taken her, it meant her past was catching up faster than she thought, and now it knew exactly where she was. The stars outside were calm now, stretching endlessly in every direction. The ship's hum was steady, but inside the cabin the air felt heavy. The girl sat in silence, her hands resting on her knees, her mind replaying the chase, every flash of light, every shake of the ship, every glimpse of the pilot's face in that enemy fighter. It all burned into her memory. The human sat at the controls, not speaking. His eyes stayed on the readings, checking for any sign of pursuit. Finally, he leaned back, letting out a slow breath. "For now," he said, "we're clear." The words were meant to be a relief, but they didn't feel like one. She looked at him, her voice low. "You said they'll be back." "They will," he said, "and they won't stop." "Because of me," she whispered. He turned to face her. "Because of what you are." She stood and paced the small space, the walls of the ship suddenly feeling closer. "I didn't ask for this," she said sharply. "I know," he replied, "but it doesn't change the truth." Her voice trembled. "The truth is, I've been running my whole life, from one cage to another, from one set of hands to the next. And now you're telling me the galaxy wants me for something I don't even understand." He didn't look away. "That's exactly why you have to choose what comes next." She stopped pacing, staring at him. "Choose?" "Yes," he said. "You can vanish, disappear to some corner of the galaxy, hide your name, live a quiet life, and hope they never find you." She waited, sensing the awe in his voice. "Or," he continued, "you can fight. Not just for yourself, but for every person still in a cage like the one you were in." Her breath caught. Images came to her mind. The rows of cages in the market. The empty eyes of others waiting to be sold. The sound of the auctioneer's voice calling out numbers. She had told herself she didn't care about them because caring hurt too much. But now, the thought of walking away while they stayed behind felt like another chain. The ship's lights dimmed as the engines shifted to a slower cruise. He moved to the storage wall and pulled out the silver case again. When he opened it, the crystal's soft blue light filled the room. "It's still a beacon," she said. "Not anymore," he replied, showing her a small device clipped to its side. "This keeps it hidden." She stepped closer, staring into the crystal's glow. The patterns of light seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. "It wants you to find the place your people left," he said. "I can take you there, but I won't make the choice for you." Her hands hovered over the crystal but didn't touch it. "If I go," she asked, "what happens?" "You'll have answers," he said. "Maybe even others like you. And if I fight?" "Then you'll have to become something they fear," he said, "not something they own." She turned away, walking toward the small window at the side of the ship. The stars stared back at her, silent, cold, and endless. Freedom was out there somewhere. But so was danger. She thought of the pilot and the black fighter, of the way they had followed her without hesitation. If she hid, they might find her. Years from now, if she fought, they would come sooner, but she would be ready. She turned back to the human, her eyes steady. "If I choose to fight, will you help me?" "Yes," he said without hesitation, "even if it kills you." His mouth twitched into a faint smile. "Especially if it kills me." Something in her chest loosened. She reached out and touched the crystal. The light inside flared brighter, filling the cabin with a glow that seemed alive. She felt warmth spread up her arm, into her chest, and for the first time, it didn't scare her. "This isn't just a weapon, is it?" she asked. "No," he said. "It's a key to what you're meant to be." She closed the case and looked at him, her voice firm. "Then we don't hide," she said. "We find them, we tear down their market, and we set every cage on fire." His smile widened just a little. "Good," he said, "because the war starts sooner than you think." The ship's engines roared as he plotted a new course. The stars shifted ahead of them, and the glow of the crystal seemed to follow. Somewhere far away, the hunter's ship would be regrouping, somewhere even farther. A hidden place waited for her arrival, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting to be taken anywhere. She was heading straight toward the fight.